Welcome to the feels. Hi everybody, and welcome. We're trying a new broadcast system, so I hope it works. Today we're going to go through the feels, and what I've been finding is that there's a couple of things about the feels. So I want to talk a little bit about feelings just in general. And feelings we have as a culture, as a society, as people have decided that feelings aren't something that we want to experience. As a matter of fact, we'd rather medicate the heck out of it, make it go away, or completely ignore it and just move on, right? Chase it away or hide from it. And here's the thing that I've learned, I want to say always, but that would be a lie. So I'll just say this is what I've kind of learned recently over the last couple of years is that number one, you can't hide from your feelings because even if you try and push them away, they have another way of showing up. And that's what we're really here to deal with today is talking about what to do with those feelings that do show up. I'm sorry, I can't find a place for my notes, which is great. So what do we do with them? So here's the thing. We've been programmed not to feel. I mean, that is the truth. I mean, if you see anything anywhere, we're programmed not to feel it. We're programmed and culturally designed to hide it, right? So how many times have you been in a public space, or if you're a man and you become emotional at some point in time, what's the first thing that you do? You try and hide it. You try to stuff it down. You try to hide it. You try not to feel it. And, by far, we try not to show it, right? So anytime you think about somebody in a public place and you see them crying, it makes you cringe, right? It's like, what do you do, right? Because we're so programmed not to do that it actually works against us. So we've done everything. We use food to stuff down feelings and emotions. We use medications to make it go away. We use like all of these pieces. So what happens when you're energetically sensitive, when you stuff those feelings down, there's a couple of things that can happen. And the first piece is that those feelings can actually get stuck in your body. They can get stuck in your physical form, which creates illness. They can get stuck in your mental form, which creates mental mind chatter and discord. And then it can move into your emotional fields. And when they're in your emotional fields, that's when we start feeling the anger, the irritation, the depression, the sadness, the anxiety, the all the stuff that comes up for us, right? And so what can happen when you do that, if you don't express the feels, if you will, and we're stuffing it, and now you're finding it in your body, we become what I call compressed, right? So when we are compressed, it's kind of like depressed, but we're compressed. You can actually feel like your body is saturated, like your body is full, and it's kind of full with all this stuck emotion that you've been trying to not deal with. So when we look at things like mindset, alignment, creating more expansion in your energy, in your fields, in your emotions, the first thing we have to do is look at all those places you want to look at. I mean, that's like your go-to place, right? So what does compression actually symbolize? So when you're in that compressed state, and I used to go through it like, I would wake up feeling like a zombie, right? You can't function. you're not necessarily depressed, but you kind of feel depressed. Things look hopeless and bleak. You can't get out of bed. You have no motivation. You have no energy, and you literally can't focus. You can't concentrate. You walk around your home like a zombie, right? And that is what I call compression. That is a whole bunch of energy, a whole bunch of feelings, all those feels that are kind of trying to rise up in your body and in your energy to get you to look at it. Because what happens once you look at it, then they go away. But when we're compressed, we don't look at it. We just stay in this zombie form and we walk around just like, the whole time, and we wait for it to pass. Now, back in the day when I first started with energy work, my zombie compressed state could last me 2 weeks because I didn't know anything about that. I didn't know how to work with it. I didn't know what it meant. I just knew that I felt really horrible and I didn't know how to get out of it. So when you're in that compressed state, it's an indicator of two things, really. Number one, there are pieces that are coming up for you to look at, which is, yay, congratulate yourself, because on the other side of that is all of that expansion and manifestation and joy and happiness you've been asking for, right? But it's kind of like you got to trudge through the swamp in order to get to the other side. So now you're in the swamp. So what do we do when we're in the swamp? That's the question, right? With all these feels. So now we're in the swamp. We got all these feels and we feel compressed. Your focus is like nowhere. You can't concentrate. And you're pretty much hoping that nobody passes your desk at work watching your drool come out of the side of your mouth because you're like a zombie. So compression happens for two reasons. Number one, you're shifting. Number two, it's a sign sometimes of resistance, of processing that isn't going smoothly, and can result in physical pain or discomfort such as headaches, right? So headaches happen when expansion is on the way, right? The body is actually physically moving the occiput in the head. So there's an actual physical movement which causes headache pain, which is the sign that the body is trying to increase its own expansion in order for it to kind of bump up in its frequency and its vibration. So when you are compressed, you can go into that mode of zombie and I feel terrible, and then go into all the victim stuff of, oh, why me? This is awful, blah, blah, blah. Or you can look at it from that neutral observer perspective that we talk a lot about in our group, and that is, let's look at the compression. What is it? Where is it coming up from? And here's the other thing about compression, is everything that you're feeling in that moment is not really what you're feeling. Okay, so let me explain that. So that compression state that you're feeling, all that depression, anger, sadness, whatever it is, that's not happening to you. Those are all the feelings that you've asked for that are being pushed up into your field and coming up to the surface for you to look at, and they are leaving. They're not coming in, right? So it's not happening to you. They're coming up for you to look at, and then they are leaving. So that compressed state is asking you to look at all of those pieces. When we resist, it gets worse. And when we resist, that process of compression and the zombie-like feelings and states of being last longer than they have to. So we're popping in today to talk a little bit about how we can kind of move through that compression state, those feeling states when they come up at a quicker rate, without having to go into a whole nightmare of drama in order to start feeling better. So that's really kind of the topic here for today. And so we're going to come up with a couple of different ways to really explain it and walk you through the process. So if you've been on a call with me before, then you're familiar with CTM, the concurrent transactional of being manifestation, which is a process that I brought in through my work with Abraham, because I think basically they were just tired of seeing me being compressed all the time. And we're just like, we got to give her something. So that came in. I've been using it all the time. It's super simple, easy to use, and it really, really does help. Now, here's the thing about concurrent transactional states of being manifestation. You can't avoid your feelings. you're going to have to look at them. And so here's the thing that I've learned through with my clients and groups that I've been working with, is that people don't know how to do that. You know, it's like, Elizabeth, you say to us all the time, feel into it, or you know, you have to look at your feelings, or you have to process it through, or, you know, whatever verbiage everybody uses. And what I get back a lot is like, I don't know how to do that, right? So if you don't know how to do that, then looking at your feelings and processing them is going to be really, really a challenge for you. And if you can't do it, what happens? You get frustrated, you get even more angry, you get more depressed, and maybe even some of you will go into the victim mode of, you know, it's not working for me, nothing happens for me, you know, all that mind chatter that kind of goes along with that. So we're going to explain a little bit about identifying it, how to feel it, how to release it, and the expansion that happens afterwards. So CTM, C is your current situation, what you're currently feeling. So when you wake up in the morning, you have an immediate reaction. You know exactly how you're feeling. You either want to get out of bed, ready for the day, or you want to stay in bed all day long and pull the covers over your head. So if you've had any of those feelings, let me know in the comments. So if you've been there, then you already know what your current state of being is. Okay. And even if you don't, you can just sit there for a couple of seconds and you can just observe it, right? And just be like, where am I with this? Okay. Where am I? What am I feeling? What is it? Is it anger? Is it depression? You really want to actually identify it. What is it? Right? And sometimes it could be everything all at once, which is what I call my compressed zombie state, right? So when you're in there, you're just like, I don't know what it is, but it stinks. And there's a lot of it. Oh, good. Praveen gets it. Okay. Yeah. So you get it, right? So you can do one of two things. We can walk around feeling like that all day long, which I've done, right? And sometimes you just have to do that. Even if you process, you still have to do that because it still needs to move through the body, right? So there's that one thing, but it's very uncomfortable. And so for me, I like to be what I call proactive. I want to be able to take control of my shift and be able to move it along a little bit faster, okay? Or process it a little bit quicker so that I can move out of the discord because I know that expansion is coming on the other side. I know that high, happy feeling is going to follow as soon as I'm able to move this out of the way. And this is the transactional state of being part, the T of the CTM. The transactional piece is actually sitting quietly with your feelings. So it's kind of like having a party with your feelings, okay? And sitting there with them and identifying each one that comes up and looking at it. Okay, so you feel depressed. Where is that in your body? And you're basically, with your awareness, you're moving yourself away and out of the body and looking at those experiences as those feelings from a neutral perspective and tracking it down. Where is it in your body? And once you find it, it's like a swimming pool. So now you have to dive in. Okay, so you move your awareness into that. You start feeling what that feels like. And one of two things happen. The moment you make that intention for that to happen, either number one, you'll just go into a full-blown release, which is like bah, crying everywhere, which is excellent because that's like going in there and popping a balloon, right? Because you have, let's say, imagine you have a balloon, right? And that's that feeling, whatever it is that you don't want to look at, and you bring your attention to it. And you're like, okay, I'm going to feel this now and I'm going to accept it. I'm going to look at it. I'm not going to chase it away. I'm going to really just kind of focus on it here for a minute and really feel it. It's like coming in and just going, and then everywhere. So that's one thing. And that usually is what happens, because if there's a feeling that's coming up that's based in like a lower vibrating, dense depression, sadness, there's an energy that just needs to release. And we release, and the body releases through tears. It's an energetic release for the body, and it helps you move through that process fast. So have you ever had a really good cry and you felt better afterwards? It's the same theory. Okay, same theory. So that's the first thing. So what you want to do also is you can go into, let's go into anger. So you find that anger. What are you really angry about? Right now, this is after you've become still. So we're in the T section of the CTM. So you really want to find that stillness within before you go diving for these pieces. Okay. So when you go into those pieces, you have to look at them. You have to allow yourself to recognize, ooh, okay, so I'm really angry. This feels like it might be mom. It might be my husband. It might be related to something else. And then just be okay with that. Okay, I'm angry. I'm angry with that situation. I accept it. And you dive a little deeper. I'm angry with that because that person disrespected me. Okay, I accept that. And then start sending love to all these pieces. And I love it. And I love it. And you go deeper and you go deeper. And what you find is at the end where you're still digging deeper and deeper and deeper, you get to this point where you're just like, there's nothing there anymore because you've slowly released it. So that's like having a balloon, right? Which is not tied at the end, but you're just kind of pulling the sides, right? My balloon sound effects. But you're releasing the air a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time. So each time you love and accept what that is, and you're okay with that feeling in that moment, you let a little bit more air out of your balloon, until finally you get to that point where you can really just love the fact that you're in this state and you accept it, and that you're going to just allow it to be what it is. You're looking at it, you're addressing it. You might even get information from those pieces, and then you're just pulling the tab and releasing all of those emotions. So even when you're angry, you still might cry, because sometimes anger can be rooted in abandonment. Sometimes anger can be rooted in betrayal and through victim. And those are really heavy, dense energies, and they're really hard to shift. And they're very emotional. They're very dense. They're very thick. So that's the T. The manifestation piece is really, if you're able to manifest crying, if you're able to manifest a stillness within you after doing the T step, if you're able to manifest a peace or calm in your energy, that is the manifestation of the CT. And then you have your M, because the M is the manifestation of the release of all of the feelings that you're holding in. So you've let it out. So that's a manifestation of a clearing, of a healing, whatever you want to call it. And then it's a release that is going to lead to those expanded energies to come in. So even if you have a piece that's stuck, right, and you release it, and you're like, well, do I still need to heal it? No, you don't need to heal it. Because that's the manifestation piece. The manifestation piece has allowed you to look at those feelings and to release it, and to be able to release it brings in the healing for yourself. It's a process in which, instead of saying, ooh, I have emotions, let me run away, we're saying, ooh, great, yes, run towards it. Run towards your feelings, because they're there to try and help you move to that expansion. Now, great, when you're in the middle of it, right? And I call it in the middle of the suck, because sometimes it can take you really low. When you're in the middle of that, it's uncomfortable. It's awkward. And what happens is we get caught up into that mental and emotional field, and we just start, all over the place. And so the first practice part of the C is to recognize what you're feeling, identify it, and then move through the rest of the pieces so that you can identify, release, heal, and move to that expansion in an easier, graceful way, which is where you're going to begin with. That's where you're headed, into that area of expansion, because you've asked for it. You've asked for more happiness. You've asked for more joy. You've asked for more money. You've asked for these blocks to be released. You've asked for healing. You're asking for all of these things, and they're coming. And if you're compressed and you wake up sad and you have, these compression pieces, that is the answer to your request. That is what's happening. That is what is being brought up for you to look at. So you can have what originally it is that you asked for. It doesn't happen just by magic. I really, really, really wish it would, right? I was so jealous of a client. Every time she would clear, she would never clear with compression. She would always clear with elation. She would be joyful after every session. And I'm just like, I want some of that. And some people just do it differently. And if you're sensitive, you will feel all of those pieces start to come up into your fields and start to leave. And they're asking you to look at them because some of them are based in resistance. Some of them are ready to leave, but you're still holding on, and they're asking you, why do you still want to hold on? What purpose am I serving you? And until you're able to identify what purpose that is serving you and be okay with, okay, I've been using this to block me from this because it wasn't safe, right? The moment you're able to identify that, it's like, poof, and then it's gone. So when you're in the middle of the fields, we're talking about like a perception redirection here. Instead of looking at it as your enemy, right, as something you need to fight against, as something you need to hide or conceal, we're inviting you to kind of run towards it, to run straight into the eye of it and be like, yeah, baby, we're going to shift. Let's look at those pieces. Let's identify them. Let's transactionalize them, and then move into the manifestation of expansion.